Hello, my name is Peter Parfitt. Welcome to the New Brick Workshop. Now, before I moved to the new location, a friend of mine at the old place came round and said, could I borrow a drill? I said, yeah, sure. What is it you need? So I got my collection of drill bits out, and I had actually one or two others which aren't here. And he looked at me and he said, God, I'm surprised at you, Peter. They're not up to much, are they? And actually, when I looked at them closely, he was right. Now, virtually all of my Forstner bits were so poor that when I used them, particularly when drilling hardwoods, you would see smoke, and you see how burnt this one is, for example. And the others are pretty similar. And then I came across some of the old drills I had, and of course, I don't have the brace and bit anymore for these, so I don't know why I hung on to them, really. Then there's the ever popular, or so I thought, spade type of drill bit, which are fine if you're working on the first or second fix of a house and you need to drill some holes. You're not really worried about what they look like. Well, they're fine. But I don't do that sort of woodwork anymore. And then, the rest of them, well, take these. I bought these specially when I was doing my keyboard cabinet, and I needed to run wires through bits of plywood and so on, so I had to do some quite long sections. All of these are virtually blunt now, and they've been used so few times, it's really frustrating. And what about these? If you want to make a big hole in something, these saw type things are awful. They don't make a particularly clean hole, and again, they're not the sort of thing that sort of matches the style of woodwork I do anymore. So all of this lot is now going to go to the metal waste at our local dump. Well, not long after that encounter with my neighbour, I went to last year's D&M show, and I thought, well, now's the time to have a jolly good look around and see what drills I might start getting to replace all these old ones. And I was lucky enough to have met a German gentleman who was working on one of the stands there. His name was Ralph Hunke. I hope, Ralph, if you're watching this, I've pronounced your last name correctly. Now, Ralph, with his business partner, run a company called Famag. Now, Famag was originally a family-run business in Germany, which had been going for at least 130 years, maybe longer. And they specialise in drills of all types. And so he was very polite to me, I was very polite to him. I spreche ein kleines bisschen Deutsch, so I didn't embarrass myself too much, and that was it. I came away from there, and I hadn't really made a decision what I might look for in terms of replacement drills. And then it was probably a couple of months later, I was visiting my professional woodworking guru, David, and chatting to him about drills and things, and he said, oh yes, of course, I've switched over to Famag, and that's what I now use entirely. I went back there recently and spoke to Jake and asked him about Famag in their business. Right now we're in the West Country. It's an awful day outside, and I'm sorry about the noise you can hear from the weather hitting the roof of the workshop. Actually, I'm not at my workshop, I'm in Jake's workshop. Jake is an established cabinet maker. We've known each other for years, and he's been buying Famag bits and pieces for a lot longer than I've known about them.
So we started buying them about a year ago, and we've used them since. We've pretty much switched our whole collection across to Famag drill bits, and we find them so accurate and so precise that we wouldn't change again. I mean, they are.
And what about wear? Do they keep their edge well?
They're perfect. They don't wear at all, and they're very hard wearing. So.
How important is accuracy to you?
Very. We work to within 0.1 of a millimetre, so I mean we need the most precise drill bits we can buy.
Yeah, because you do some pretty smart stuff. I know that. I've seen it in various magazines as well. Okay. Yeah. Jake, thank you very much indeed.
That's quite all right, Peter. Very welcome popping into the workshop, and the drill bits are really good, and I'd recommend you look at them and get some.
Thank you very much indeed, okay. Jake.
Cheers.
I've been lucky enough now to have received some samples from Famag, which I'm going to show you. And just as Jake was really impressed with them, so I've been really impressed with these samples. let me show you what I've got here. One of the things that I've always liked is the ability for some Forstner bits to have a interchangeable centre pin here. You can see you can replace that centre pin with a pin like this one, and you end up with what might otherwise be described as a normal Forstner style bit. Now, a normal Forstner style bit can be very tricky if you're trying to drill at an angle. So those that have a pin that can be replaced with a longer guide point, and perhaps one like this one which has got a drill function to it, can be a great advantage. I'll just tighten that up a little bit. Now, as you can probably see, this extended centerpiece now can start drilling into the wood. It can be established in the wood, so it's keeping true to this angle. And then by the time the actual Forstner part comes into contact with the wood, it's not going to deflect in any way. And that is absolutely super if you want to drill angled holes. I've then been sent two normal Forstner style bits. This one's 35mm and this one's 12. More about this one in a second or two. But whilst I've got this larger one in my hand, let me just explain the way that this design works. First of all, this is a high-grade alloy steel, and it's been hardened. And it has this wave pattern around the edge, which we've seen other manufacturers use. But it's also got these sort of grooves that you see around here. And the whole design is such that this drill bit will run very cool as it goes through even a hardwood like oak or mahogany and so on, because it's the overheating of a cutter that leads to its downfall when it starts to lose its edge because it's losing its temper and so on and so forth. Now, I really want to try and get this as close as I can so that you can see just how clean the entry side is and the exit side. And I'm going to touch the cutter straight away, and that cutter is not hot. It's warm, but it's not hot. Now, the smaller one, the 12mm one, I particularly asked if I could have one of these for this video because I use a lot of magnets, and these magnets have a diameter of 12mm, and I'm forever setting magnets into pieces of wood and then putting a very thin plug over the magnet so that the magnet is completely hidden. So I've got the 12mm Forstner cutter, and I've got this plug cutter which produces a 12mm plug. Now here's one of my 12mm magnets, which I'll just put down carefully out of the way. And I want to set this into this piece of walnut, and I'll make a plug out of this other piece of walnut. Now there's my hole, and my magnet fits in there. In fact, it's so tight that the air won't come out from underneath. Now this is quite a substantial piece of steel, and because of that it's going to make a very clean plug. So there's my plug, and I'll try and get this so it's focused nicely so you can see how clean it is on both sides. So I put my plug in now, and obviously one would line up the grain so it matches. And so I'm now just going to put a little drop of glue there, and I'll show you the finished job. And I've made no real attempt to match the grain of the wood, but just look how clean the two pieces meet. And if I wet it like that, you can see there it's as clean as anything. And here's another one I've done. And you can see there just how clean that is. Again, I've not made any effort to match the grain. Now, Famag make a huge range of brad point cutters, and they also do them in different lengths. You can see I've got the long version here as well. And they have 4 categories for the quality, down at hobbyist at the lowest end, up to the superb or excellent quality at this end. And there are 2 others in between. But these are the top of the range, and the points are extremely sharp. I must tell you, I accidentally dropped this on my finger the other day and it actually made a very neat puncture mark, and it didn't half hurt. Now, I find it particularly difficult to do long straight cuts, but I'm going to do my best. And I'm going to try and go from the centre here to the centre on the other side. I suspect that's through now. So let's see how we got on. And don't expect this to be in the middle. No, it's not. So that's my judgment. Let's see if I can get it to go a little straighter. Well, that was a bit better, so not so difficult after all. And they have an interesting countersink which can be used with these, and you just basically put the drill in however far you need it, depending what task you're doing. Tighten up the 2 little set screws on either side. And these will fit a range of different drill sizes in the middle. So you can countersink and drill at the same time. And one interesting thing which was pointed out to me is that you can actually reverse this to give you a quite useful depth stop. You just take that out like so, put it in the other way, and you've got quite a useful flat surface here to act as a depth stop if you're doing repeated cuts to a certain depth. And that could be used on this long version as well if you wished. And there's that countersink, nice and clean, and the exit hole is equally clean on the other side. Now, I hope this little demonstration of these particular cutters from Famag has been useful, and I'd like to thank them for sending these samples to me so that I could make this video. But they have a whole range of cutters, and including some absolutely magnificent sets. Now, the cutters range in quality, and so you should decide what suits you best. And if you have some particular sizes that you use a lot, then perhaps get the most expensive cutters in that particular size, and maybe the cheaper ones in the sizes that you only use once in a while. And I'm really grateful to David and Jake for persuading me that Famag really is the way to go. Many thanks for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.